Hello, my dearest friends. Today I would like to tell you a story, more or less in a podcast style, because I just wrote the story and I tried to read it to you in a way so that you can understand what happened to me when we were traveling to Sweden. It's now more than 6 months, September last year, that this happened, and I still think about this a lot. And I also listen to a lot of podcasts that talk about those creepy things, and a lot of people report to have seen similar things to what I have seen. And it felt really good to me to know that I'm not the only one who is seeing things in houses. So first of all, I always think these stories are amazingly entertaining. So if you like a really good ghost story, or at least I hope it's good, then you can stay to get a little bit creeped out. And if you have experienced similar things maybe, then please feel free to write your experience in the comments, because I always am so grateful to know that I'm not insane and that I'm not the only person who has experienced things like this, because this was real and this was an incredibly horrifying experience for me, and I have to say it never happened again. We were at, I think, 7 or 8 different houses at that journey, and it was only in this one house, and I never had this dream again during the last few months. So this was really, I hope, a once in a lifetime thing. Otherwise, if something like this would happen again, I would have all my stuff with me. I won't go unprepared again on a holiday like that. I hope you are not sitting alone in a dark house in the woods, because this won't help you get a good sleep tonight. Please listen to this when you are in a safe surrounding, when you feel safe, and please do not do this to you, that you scare the shit out of yourself now by listening to this alone in a cabin in the woods with just some candles or shit like that. Yeah, I have warned you. So I hope you like how I wrote it. I hope you like how I told it. I gave my best. And now I wish you a lot of fun. Please take care of yourself. We already had left about 1,600 kilometers behind us. We had been on the road for 4 days, and during this time we had spent 1 night in Malmö and 2 nights in Tanumshede on the west coast of southern Sweden. Our final destination? Östersund, the last big city in the north of Sweden. It was the beautiful autumn golden time in the middle of September. We love Sweden, my husband and I. Also, our 2 dogs quickly fell in love with the nature, the freedom, and the great weather. Yes, such a trip by car, driving more than 1,000 kilometers with constantly changing sleeping places, is exhausting, but Sweden is worth it to us all. Between Idre and Särna lay the place where we would spend another 3 nights before arriving at our final destination. The cottage that awaited us in Alfdalen was supposed to be right on a lake or big calm river, according to the insert. Quiet, no direct neighbors, forest around the house mixed with water and silence. The pictures we had seen of the house online were rather insignificant, and so we allowed ourselves to be surprised, full of anticipation. In fact, there at the lake was a small red-white cottage, as it could not have been more Swedish. We parked right next to it and let our 2 dogs, a Dalmatian Frida and our small French bulldog Grimnir, explore the property, which would be our home for the next 3 days. After a little detective play, we also found the key to the front door as described by the landlord and entered the house. It had only 1 floor. A very long hallway with several doors leading to different rooms, and at the end of the hallway we found the open living room with the kitchen. Everything was very simple furnished. No great charming pictures on the walls, a plastic chain of lights above the sofa, chairs and furniture from the 70s. We estimated the kitchen to be even older. Some handles on the drawers were missing. The stove showed traces of failed cooking attempts of our previous tenants, and the dishes were surrounded by a small layer of grease and/or dust. All in all, I would say that the condition of the house was commensurate with the price. It was really cheap in proportion to the fact that the house was located in such a beautiful place. We still found everything pretty nice, washed the dishes again that we would use, and put our things away. Now to the rooms. The living room was open to the hallway, as I said, no doors or curtains. Walking from the living room towards the front door, directly to the left, the first door was the door to the big bedroom, as I would call it. The room consisted entirely of wood paneling. There was only one large bed in it, the headboard against the wall where the door to the hallway was. So when you entered the room, you looked directly at the pillows on your left hand. If you then looked forward, you would see windows overlooking the lake and the fantastic view. Underneath this window were a couple of wooden chairs. Also to the right and left at the head of the bed were wooden chairs instead of nightstands. No problem, they served their purpose. Overall, the room was way too big for just having a bed and a couple of chairs in it. No pictures on the walls, just curtains in the dirty windows and a few simple rugs on the floor. I felt uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable. I 100% blamed the uncomfortable feeling at that moment on this flimsy, loveless decor and continued to clean out our stuff. There was another bedroom that was just behind the front door, at the other end of the hallway, so to speak. I'm always curious, and even though we wouldn't be needing the bedroom, I wanted to take a look inside. I opened the simply wooden door, and the first thing I noticed was this nauseating coldness that met me. I know that this is an unusual word to describe cold, but you know what I mean if I may explain myself. Have you ever walked into a room in a very old house that is hardly ever used and therefore not heated even in cold temperatures? It becomes strangely musty, but still fresh since the air is not really consumed. But the air stands cold and old in this house. And that's exactly the kind of cold air that I felt on my skin. This kind of air also brought an energy with it that kept me from crossing the threshold into the room. The room seemed empty to me. It was the smallest, beside the laundry room, and had 2 single beds as well as a closet and several chairs distributed in it. Was thus the narrowest and smallest and yet seemed the most empty of all rooms to me. An uneasy feeling came over me and I closed the door tightly. I made sure that it was firmly closed, and then I went on with my tasks. Now you know where we are. You know the most important rooms and hopefully have a rough orientation in the house. And now I'll tell you about the nights. After we ate dinner together and were really dead tired from the many hours of driving, ready for a big cup of sleep, we prepared everything for the night. The dogs would sleep in the living room on the sofa. Frida, the Dalmatian, in the corner of the L-shaped sofa, and the little one Grimly at the other end. We turned off all the lights and went into our large, empty bedroom. We drew the curtains in front of the windows and turned off the last lights. You can imagine the kind of darkness in a place like that, on a lake, with no neighbors, in the woods. Zappenduster is a radical German word to describe complete darkness and would still be a trivialization of the darkness that surrounded us there. And I must note, we are not fearful people. We knew we would experience a lot of darkness because that is what we desired. We were looking for silence, solitude, and tranquility because that is almost never granted to us in Berlin where we live. We wanted a lonely hut in the forest, because in nature we feel safe and secure. We were looking for seclusion and peace. But unfortunately, we did not get that in this house, at this lake. Just to make a few things clear. I am a very sensitive person and I feel, to put it bluntly, negativity. But I usually blame the feeling on things like the furnishings or the like. And I have to learn to take that more seriously. I know that today. I also often dream a lot, but never of monsters, monstrosities and creepy figures. I don't see shadows, eyes where eyes shouldn't be, or get chased by bad beasts in my dreams. My nightmares always revolve around the loss of loved ones, betrayal, treachery, fear of wars, diseases, or similar mundane subjects. But they are never supernatural. So now on this first night we lay in bed, my husband quickly fell asleep and my eyes quickly fell shut as well. However, and I remember this clearly, I had to force myself to relax and surrender to sleep. We had left the bedroom door open so we would hear it if the dogs got uneasy. At least that calmed me down a bit. My dogs were there. Suddenly the darkness slowly dissipated. My heart was beating extremely fast. I stood in the doorway and looked around into the long, dark hallway, guided more by an uneasy feeling than by sounds. In the hall, I saw it. A dark, human-like shape of dense black shadows, moving quickly yet slowly, crawling on his arms and feet, yet upright through the hallway, towards our bedroom, threatening, dark, evil. Bathed in sweat, I tore my eyes open, stiff with fear, staring into the darkness. The unbearably loud pounding of my heart made it almost impossible for me to hear. Did I even want to hear? I made no sound, kept my breath low, in deep fear something could hear me. And at the same moment, I heard the small plodding footsteps of our French bulldog as he jumped off the sofa and ran down the hall, restless, searching, but for what? It cost me everything at that moment to reach for the light switch of the lamp on this chair beside my bed and turn on the light. I was, of course, stupidly also lying on the side of the bed that was right next to the door that led to the black, dark hallway. After the light turned on, Grimly came running straight to me. He was very restless. He wakes up quite often when he needs to relieve himself. Then he walks aimlessly around in the house and just waits until someone wakes up and lets him outside. This was different. I look at my cell phone. It was midnight. I still had the whole damn night ahead of me. Uncertain and afraid, the dog and I stared at each other. My whole body was shaking. Fear had crept into every pore and everything in me was screaming, "Run!" But all I could dejectedly reply was, "But where?" I stood up and went as quick as I could into the living room and brought Grimly's dog bed into the bedroom. I put it on the floor at my side of the bed, hoping he would just sleep peacefully, hoped that his soothing little breathing and relaxation would transfer to me. How wrong I was. For all of you who are now thinking, yeah, the dog was just in an unfamiliar environment and didn't really know where to go with himself, so it's completely normal that he's running around at night. Unfortunately, I have to disappoint you. We have been in 2 unknown environments before and have also traveled a lot with the dogs in the past years. I have never experienced such behavior with him, especially like this, without reason. But back to the bedroom. That night I did not sleep much. At about 5:30 a.m. I finally jumped up, grabbed my video equipment and left the house to film nature. The main goal with that was not having to be inside. The dog hadn't slept much either. He had been constantly getting up, looking around, laying down again. Frida didn't check in. She stayed on the sofa. We spent the day outside. Even though my husband didn't want to hear anything I had to say about my horror experience last night, he didn't want to spend too much time inside the house either. So we really only spent time inside for cooking and eating and, unfortunately, but of course, sleeping. We were at the lake or in the garden the rest of the time. The second night arrived. I was grateful for the clear, starry sky, because that evening my husband and I decided to try to do some astrophotography. Around 11 p.m. we went outside and photographed and marveled at the stars and enjoyed the amazing view until the camera battery ran out. The darkness in this place, broken only by the light of the stars, was like a soft, safe blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The forest was like a high, secure wall. The lake in front of us, calm and deep black, cold and wide. Here I could breathe. I really wanted to stay outside, but at this point, with no battery and frozen fingers and toes, we had to go inside again. So we had to try to sleep. This time I had left on a light in the living room, which also illuminated the hallway to a big extent. That helped. I lay in bed, closed my eyes, and immediately felt someone in the room staring at me. The gaze almost pierced me. This thing stood on the wall, not far away from where the door was, just as if it was proud to be a few steps inside the room, but didn't want to go too far inside. As if it wanted to stay close to the doorway, close to me, but not too close, yet. I lay there, eyes tightly closed, and I spoke my mantra. You are radiant. You are safe. You are light. The darkness does not come to you. You shine. You are radiant. You are safe. You are light. And so on. I visualized a light surrounding me and my husband and focused all my energy on maintaining it. Again and again I dozed off and woke up because my inner light had faded and I felt those probing eyes again. Or I would be startled because Grimly was running through the apartment again in his search for something. 5 a.m. I jumped out of bed and left the house. Something lived here. I was now sure about that. Again we spent the whole day outside, and finally it was there, the last night. That day I had to confide in a friend via WhatsApp. The burden and the fear became too heavy for me to continue carrying them alone. On the 22nd of September 2022 at 10 a.m. I wrote to her. But something is wrong with this house. It's super weird. I rarely have trouble sleeping in strange surroundings. Actually, never. But here, something is weird. I can't sleep, feel incredibly watched. Only light helps. I turned on the light in the living room last night. It helped. Outside I have no problems at all. I can move around our little half island at night without any problems. I feel safe and secure in the forest and on the quiet lake shore. But as soon as I enter our bedroom, my stomach tightens. I at least told my husband about the feeling of fear in general and asked him to hold me tightly that night. He agreed without hesitation. I was too afraid that what lived here would come even closer that night, and I alone would not be strong enough to fight it off. And so it happened. We lay down in bed, the light in the living room turned on, Grimly now inside the bed with us this time. My husband held me tightly in his arms, pressed me against his chest, and I slowly closed my eyes. I repeated my mantra, feeling that we were being watched, but it kept distance. This shadow creature again pierced us with staring eyes. It was closer than the night before, and from time to time I felt it try to get straight towards the bed. But I felt safe. I wasn't alone anymore, and this thing knew that. I got a few hours of sleep this time. Grimly also finally slept through this last night, probably as much due to exhaustion as I did. When I woke up in the morning, my husband was still holding me tightly. I love this person. He had never let his arms loose during that night. As soon as we were both awake, we ate just a small breakfast and left the house very, very quickly. Even though my husband didn't want to talk to me about these things and denied that there was anything strange here, he too hurried a lot and had no desire to stay there any longer than necessary. Before 10 a.m. in the morning, we drove off and left the property without a backward glance. Who knows who would have been watching us standing there in the window while we left it behind. A little epilogue. I was insanely afraid that this something would attach itself to me, and I would accidentally take it with me. But fortunately, that was not the case. After we finally arrived in Östersund and moved into the small cottage there, built before 1940, we were greeted by a warm, welcoming energy. Both I and my little Grimly slept like babies in their favorite blankets for the 11 nights we spent there. However, even today, my stomach clenches and I get goosebumps when I think of that house on the lake. And I feel an ache, because that place could be a healing place for the soul because of where the house is and how it is built. But somebody has to really take care of it, cherish it, and let go of these spirits that seem to inhabit it. I think something bad happened there. I could sense this dark energy as feminine, and it always came from the small, cramped bedroom behind the front door. It never ventured into the living room. Unfortunately, however, it did venture into our bedroom. Be careful when choosing a house. Take some cleansing incense bundles and nightlights with you.